Okay. I want to read a excerpt from Feminist Theory from Margin to Center by Bell Hooks. This is on page 95 of the edition I have. I don't remember. Anyways. While women do not buy nuclear warheads, neither do most men. Contrary to Chesler's assumptions that the purchase of small items is insignificant, profit from the sale of women's fashion alone makes it one of the major industries in the economy. Endless purchases of small items can lead to enormous economic profit and power. As consumers, women have power, and if organized, could use that power to improve women's social status. So I think one of the tricks of our modern culture is the assumption that we are all consumers, or that being consumptive, or that consuming is a innate human trait. And this is brought on by propaganda, by advertising, by the veritable flood of data telling us this is true. Every time you turn on a TV, every time you pick up your phone, every time you check a website, you are told that you are a consumer, that your path to happiness is in purchasing products, that your problems will be solved by these capitalist, these industrial methods. That's not true. If it was true, they wouldn't need to advertise it. Like, the advertising is what makes it, air quotes, true. Is they are creating the circumstances for you to believe it true and for you to act on that belief, and that makes it happen. But I think most people can attest to not being happy, to not being satisfied in their lives. And so starts the endless stream of Amazon packages to their front door. What they are trying to fill through this purchase of material goods is needs that are no longer being met because of our atomized society. Is there's not public spaces in America to really easily convene and to socialize. There's no longer easy access for not just access, but like the environment itself isn't hospitable. Like if we're talking like zoning laws with the emphasis on car-centric infrastructure and on single-family housing and like suburban sprawl, is like these are physical structures in our lives that are very disruptive to forming healthy social structures, but they are beneficial to they're beneficial to the powers that be. So it's like so if we even if we kept like the suburbs, let's like take the suburbs as an example, because I grew up in a suburb. I grew up in a wealthy suburb. It's just like you have a row of like, let's say 10 houses. And under the capitalist view, like in order for you to be happy and to enjoy your house, one of the things you need is a well-maintained lawn. And in order to maintain this lawn, you need lots of things. You need fertilizer, you need a lawnmower, you need a weed whacker, you need, you know, your gardening, your lawn care supplies. And not only do you need that, but every person on your row needs that. So what you have there is you need 10 lawnmowers for 10 houses, and each house has like a quarter of an acre of a lawn. Like it's not a lot, but we're building these big complex energy guzzling machines to maintain each individual parcel. Or you get lawn care services, which you pay an amount, probably more than if you had like bought a lawnmower and done it yourself, but you're not paying, like, the people who are doing the work aren't getting a lot of that money because it's a business, like, and there's an owner and there's overhead, and then there's so, like, now you're paying someone like $15 an hour, I hope, at least, in this modern day and age. I have no idea how much people get, like, how much someone's getting paid, but, like, for this pretty laborious work, so, like, that's not an efficient system. That's just not good. But it's brought on by social inertia, and it's perpetuated by just floods of propaganda. So the solution to this is rethinking. You have to rethink what it means to have a nice home, to have a good home. You can't ascribe, like, in this particular scenario, like, you can't ascribe to the standards or to the values that have been previously set. You have to redefine them in a way, that's conducive to liberation. So, if we're talking lawn care maintenance still, like, we're not going to, like, bulldoze the houses, because the houses are already there. We shouldn't be building more suburbs, but, like, we don't necessarily need to, like, bulldoze things that people live in, because, again, it's their house. We're not evil here. We're not corporations. But you can restructure that. So instead of hiring out help, or instead of buying 10 lawnmowers and 10 fertilizer dispensers and 10 weed whackers, you can buy 2 of each, and you can have a shed somewhere on the street. Someone can be like, I don't use my front lawn that much. We can just put a shed here, or we can keep it in a backyard because we don't want people to see it for whatever reason. And then people can just borrow it when they need it, because, like, you spend so much on a lawnmower, right? And, like, how many hours do you actually spend behind that lawnmower, pushing it or riding it? Like, so you're spending hundreds of dollars on this machine that you are going to use for an hour every week. Well, if you're only using it for an hour a week, why not then just have one that gets passed around and shared? Because, because, like, it's just more efficient. You're using less resources. You're not wasting money on this machine that you're not using very often. And then it gets cheaper. And so instead of spending hundreds of dollars on this machine, if everyone's pulling money, you spend $25 and you get a stake in it, kind of thing. So, and that goes, and then a similar argument can be made for, I think most like large scale apparatus. When we talk the difference between private and personal property, this is what we mean. Because it's like, I think when you say private property, people shouldn't have private property, and someone's like, well, you want me to not own my toothbrush and my t-shirt? And they're like, no, that's personal property. That is stuff that you use every day, that you keep around you, that, like, that's important to your person. So, like, things that I would consider my personal property is, like, a lot of my clothes, toiletries, even like my computer, my phone, stuff that, like, I'm glued to, that, like, I need to have by me all the time, or I need to have access to it all the time. Private property is something like a car, a lawnmower. House is also personal property. Like I think people need to have their own space. I think it's really important, especially like being an autistic person, like personal space to to vent, to just be with my thoughts, to unwind, to relax, to recenter, to have, you know, that space to unwind and that space that I can like futz around with and it's not going to bother anyone else. I can rearrange my room, I can decorate, I can do whatever. Like that's important for maintaining a self and for self-expression. And then also the privacy. People need privacy to varying degrees, and like so this is a way you ensure that people maintain their privacy. Um, yeah, but private property, cars, lawnmowers, fuck, you could even stuff like a stand mixer or a vacuum cleaner is like those could arguably be private property, and like you could have a central repository in your community that is within walking distance that you can be like, oh, I need to clean my house today. I'm gonna go, you know, walk down the street and borrow some cleaning supplies, do my thing, and then put it back. You know, some refrigerators, like, and so then you get like some more nuancy, nitpicky stuff like food storage or like washing machines, and like these things that straddle the line of like, okay, well technically, like, yeah, a refrigerator is like a big expensive piece of technology. Um, is that private or personal property? And you know, I would say in a lot of cases it's personal, like having food, access to food in your domicile, especially for people who struggle to get out or for whom going places is difficult, like that's incredibly important. But it's a balance, you know. I think having a refrigerator, having a pantry, having food storage, not necessarily personal, but like, because like I live with my partner and I live with a metamor, so there's three of us in the house. So like it is, our refrigerator is a supply hub for three people, you know, for our immediate community. And like if we had better connections with our neighbors, like you could grow that. Um, but so like I don't think that's necessary, but I also think that that equation changes, that if you go back to like, okay, if we're focusing more on immediate community infrastructure, so having a food bank that isn't trying to serve a city, but it's trying to serve a street, you know, um, like, so what does your food storage look like then if instead of having 10 houses on a street, you have 9 houses and one of them is a dispensary? You know, this magical storage shed in which we keep our lawnmowers, in which we keep our food, in which we keep our cleaning supplies. Um, how much are you going to have to start keeping in your house then? Because I think that's part of it too, is in America we're used to like the weekly shopping trip. It's like you get in the car, you go, you buy a big, you know, you buy food for the week and you bring it home. Um, Again, and so you need all this storage space for it. But like if you don't have to drive 20 minutes to get to a grocery store to do your big shopping trip, and instead it's just, you know, a couple hundred feet down the street, you don't need to you don't need to buy things in such large quantities and have such large on-site storage, like in-house storage, because the barrier to do a shopping trip is so much lower. It is so much easier to get what you need when you need it. You don't have to stockpile. So, bringing this back to the bell hooks quote, is like, yeah, it's not true. We're not consumers necessarily. Like, we can be consumers, but it's not an innate thing about us. Because also, when you stop seeing yourself as a consumer, or when you start seeing consumption as a means to achieving personal ends, a lot of possibilities open up. Like in my personal experience, yeah, like let's talk food again. Like I try to grow my own food, and now obviously I'm living in a townhouse apartment. I don't have a lot of yard space. Um, and like the community garden I can participate in is a half-hour drive into the city because I live out small town fringes of a major city. Um, so like obviously I can't like fulfill my fully my nutritional needs by stuff I grow. Not yet, at least. But we're working on it. Um, so but so like this past year, I grew a bunch of potatoes. I grew, I think, three crops of potatoes, and it was small crops because again, I don't have a lot of space. Um, but that was still like 10 pounds of potatoes that I didn't have to buy. That was 10 pounds of potatoes that did not have to get shipped from a farm, usually not even in the state. I'm in New York, so usually not in New York because it's hard to go. Yeah. Um, you know, and so like I've managed to decrease my carbon footprint by that amount. And this is because I realized that like, okay, the grocery store is not the only place I can get my food. Um, and it's the same thing for anything really. Like textiles is probably a big one. There's a lot of energy put into the mass production of textiles. Like I'm wearing a mass-produced T-shirt right now, and like it makes sense because textiles is like making cloth is hard. It requires a lot of resources. It requires a lot of time. It requires a lot of effort. But we have this notion like you shouldn't wear the same thing 2 days in a row. Like we say it's for sanitary reasons, it's not for sanitary reasons. It's it's so you buy more clothes. It's so you wear through things more quickly, or like it's regulating. It's familiarizing you with the idea that like as clothes as consumable rather than clothes as like as a consumable rather than clothes as a functional product or a functional object. Like, why do you wear clothes? To protect yourself because you like the aesthetic. In some of it's cleanliness too, but like you can wear the same pair of jeans for a week, and yeah, by the end of the week they're gonna get pretty gross, and you're gonna wash them. But like, it's fine before that. um, and so you don't need to have a pair of jeans for every day of the week. Um, so when we talk revolution, when we talk change, when we talk dismantling power, like this is what we mean. It's not about putting yourself, it's not about becoming president and making decrees and changing things that way. It's about learning your personal power, because we all have personal power. Even if you're incredibly disenfranchised, even if you're incredibly marginalized, you have less personal power, but you have personal power. And so it is a task of recognizing that and then exercising it. And that's not an easy thing to do, especially when you're on your own. And I think as for like speaking as an autistic person, and as someone who's gone through a lot of trauma, um, like that's the sticking point, I think, and that's where a lot of people's frustration comes, is like, how can I do this? How can I change? How can I change the world when I'm just barely hanging in there myself? Um, and like that's the trick of it, is find ways of improving your life that don't require you having power over others. So, like, for me, it's gardening. Like, gardening is incredibly important to my mental health. Um, just for feeling good, it gets me outside. It does, it checks all the well-being boxes. But also, I can grow food, and I can feed myself with this food, and I can feed the people around me with this food. And so, like, okay, so I start small, and maybe I only grew 10 pounds of potatoes this year, and I don't even know if that's how much I grew. Um, but, like, that's okay, because I'm learning. I'm starting, and what's important is that this process is taking place, because as long as the process keeps taking place, as long as I keep coming back, like, what can I do better, what can I improve on, how can I, it's like, okay, I'll find out, because like I have like a 6x4 plot that I've staked off to make sure the apartment lawn maintenance people don't destroy my plants. But it's like, okay, so next year, why don't I build another raised bed further out in the yard, and like keep reclaiming this space until I get a cease and desist letter, and then we say, okay, well, there's that boundary. How much land have I reclaimed for myself? How much more produce can I now produce? We've hit that boundary for now, and like, okay, we don't want to get evicted because I need a place to live. What's the next boundary we can push? Where's the next place I can start taking space for myself, for my community? And like, that's how this has to get done. And you just keep doing that. And like, it sounds like too simple to be true, but like, that's revolution in action. That is revolutionary praxis in, that is the theory in practice. So, yeah, thanks for listening to this quote. Thanks for listening to my thoughts. I hope you learned something from it, and I encourage you to push the envelope, to push some boundaries, to say no to authority in ways that you think are safe for you. Stay safe, everyone. Love you all, and thanks for listening.